The way America does business is changing. Mom and pop stores are quickly becoming things of the past, replaced by a new generation of entrepreneurs who often are operating a franchise such as McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts. You can find the same retail outlets in virtually every town in America. Some complain, like me, that it's making our nation so boring. Others see opportunities emerging. Let's say hello to the Fresh Outlook think tank. Joining us here in studio are political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, political science professor Alain Sanders of St. Peter's University, certified financial planner Jim McCarthy, and joining us live via Skype, president of the Commercial Fleet Financing, Inc., Matt Manero. Doc, I'm going to begin with you because you say you have a little skin in this game. That you used to own a couple of or franchise for Haagen-Dazs.
Yes, I was the fourth franchisee in the world for Haagen-Dazs, and my wife and I really enjoyed the experience, and I think it's a positive one. If a company has a great product and you can get into that somehow as a franchisee, even if it costs some real dollars, I think it's a good idea. It's a good way to go. You can present yourself with an excellent product to begin with, something that you know is great, and then it's up to you to run the store or run that franchisee that you have and make it successful. So I really think it's changed America in a lot of ways, and I think it's a change for the better.
Do you find it restrictive, though? You have to buy their cups, you have to sell their flavors, you have to put up their signs, you have to do it their way.
Well, it is restrictive, but some of the restrictions also help you because you want to maximize the impact of Haagen-Dazs, for example, that particular ice cream product, which was excellent, very high-grade product. So some of the restrictions really do help you in the long run.
Alan, what are your thoughts on franchises taking over America? I try to avoid them at all costs. I won't go to a Subway, I won't go to a McDonald's, I won't go to a Starbucks. I like to find an independent coffee shop or a sandwich shop. I want to feel like I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and not in some indistinguishable place.
Right, and there's much to be said for that. People like individuality, what each part of the country really has to offer. But the driving force, of course, is the economy, and for many people, many of them are being driven out of their original jobs. They get too old, or their salaries start to be too high for the corporate executives, and so they need a model to follow where they can work again and be profitable and be useful again. And so I think franchises offer them that possibility. Also, it offers a possibility for new entrepreneurs, people who want to get into business but don't quite know how to do so. It gives them a learning experience and allows them to do that. So I think it fills a very important need. Aesthetically, or for the palate, or however you want to put it, it is problematic. Right. But I suspect that there are innovative people around the country who will find their little niche, even with all the franchises that abound. I think if you travel the smaller roads of the country as opposed to the superhighways, you will find those niches, and they do exist, and they're wonderful.
I agree. Jim, you're a financial planner.
Sure.
When a client comes to you, what is your recommendation usually?
Well, a couple of interesting statistics to your last point. There are about 30 million businesses in the United States that are considered small businesses by the Small Business Administration. Of that, roughly 24 million are actually have no employees, or it's only the owner and their family.
So it's basically a self-employed situation.
Right, so that's to Alan's point, these people that are being sized out of the job market, and they're starting their own businesses. Of that 6 million or so that do have employees, 80% of those have 20 or fewer. So it really speaks to the small business owner. Whether it's a franchise, you probably had 10 or 15 people working for you.
Correct.
So even a small franchise, McDonald's probably has more, but some of them have smaller ones. I think the main difference, as Alan pointed out, is that if you're looking for structure, if you're a person who's looking to get into a business and you're looking for structure, a brand, good quality product, but you also need to have a significant amount of capital, because the
minimum is $50,000 more or less to get into one, or that's
it depends on the type of the franchise you're looking at, to be honest with you, Logan. Some could be several $100,000, some could be well into the $1 million. Panero franchise is about $1.5 million.
But some are licensed to make money. You get that $1.5 million together, and you might be funneling it in.
I think that, well, the difference between starting your own business from scratch and then buying a franchise is, in starting your business from scratch, you're going to make less money initially, but your your payback is so much sooner because your investment is so much smaller. Whereas
So you
if you
can
go
get-
into something where you've had a big upfront cost, you need a couple of years just to pay yourself back for your upfront investment before you're really truly profitable. I mean, the business itself may be profitable,
I understand.
but you're probably just paying yourself back your upfront investment.
Let's turn to Matt Manero. Matt, what's your take on this? Good trend, bad trend? How does it work?
Now, franchises are a fantastic model for the first reason of structure that was mentioned by your other guest. Most businesses don't have the structure that a franchise gives them. So the franchise aspect works because of the structure. But the missing piece of the puzzle is most businesses, whether they're a small business independent or a franchise, don't know how to sell the product and services well enough. And that's why franchises become so beneficial, and they have sort of vanilla-ized the business landscape, because both franchise or independents, nobody knows how to sell the product and services anymore to differentiate themselves. And so I love franchises, and I especially love them when the owner gets out front, starts ringing a bell or handing up a sign, and says, come in and see me, come in and buy my products and services.
Yeah, it's interesting. You do see that entrepreneurial flair sometimes. I know, Bart, I'll go into a McDonald's, and the owner will be behind the counter running the whole show often with just 2 or 3 other people helping. Tell me about how the franchise work. Do they keep on picking your pocket the whole time? Do you have to give them X number of percent of your profits?
Well, you do give a percentage, and it's also based on, for example, how much ice cream. Mine was an ice cream shop, of course, Haagen-Dazs. So the more ice cream we bought, the more we sold, and therefore the better it was for the main company.
Yeah, and they're getting part of your profits, plus you're buying everything
Right.
from them. You're paid to represent them.
Correct.
They're getting paid on every end.
They get paid on every end, but as just we said, the structure does work, the product is excellent, so you're going into something where you have more substance. It's not a big question mark. If you are going to work hard and really try to go at this, you're likely to be very successful.
Right. One franchise that comes to mind right now that seems to be tanking is Subway. They have more restaurants than any other fast food restaurant in America, and now they're kind of embroiled in a scandal with their chief spokesperson, Jared Fogle, the guy who lost all the weight walking to Subway, apparently had some bad stuff on his computer. So that's a problem with a franchise, is you live or die by it. Haagen-Dazs ice cream was red hot in the 80s, I'm assuming, when you had one?
Right, but it's still good. It's still a great product.
It's still good, but I can't remember the last time I went to a Haagen-Dazs store.
You know,
right?
one of the things that comes up, and you not so much, well, Subway you're seeing it a little bit, but in the ice cream field, for example, comparing Haagen-Dazs to Cold Stone, Haagen-Dazs is, I think, franchise model. They were a little bit more restrictive about how fast they grew, how many franchises they put out there. Cold Stone, and not to pick on Cold Stone, I love the ice cream, but there was a period in time when they got hot, and they were like putting them up every 2 miles apart, and eventually they just oversaturated local markets.
Right.
And so that unfortunately becomes a problem for franchisees, because if you're the last guy in the door,
Yeah.
you know, you might be buying
It's almost
into
like a pyramid. You're going to win if you're at the bottom of it, but you're at the top and you've got a Cold Stone 3 blocks that way and a Cold Stone 5 blocks that way.
Not necessarily, Logan, because you could be the guy who operates more efficiently and does a better job, as this gentleman on the remote said, to promote your business better. You could still be the guy that wins, but what I'm saying is that if you get, you know, if you're the first guy in the local town and then all of a sudden the third and the fourth come in, doesn't mean the third one doesn't win, but the town can't support 3 Cold Stones or 3 Haagen-Dazs or 3 Subways or
Exactly.
3 of anything. And so I think, unfortunately, when the franchise gets hot, sometimes the corporate office tends to oversell itself, and sometimes that's not necessarily beneficial for the franchisees, any of them, frankly.
Exactly. Matt, do the franchisees have a voice in this process? Jim's talking about overbuilding of retail outlets. I was talking before about fads coming and going. People, for example, loving Cold Stone. I remember going to Cold Stone with my kids every night when they used to sing when you walked in the door. And I haven't been to a Cold Stone in years. So,
It's a big problem. I have a friend who owns a sandwich shop. It's not a Subway, it's a competitor of Subway. And in the contract, he has the territory within a 5-mile radius of his store, and the corporate company came in and sold 15 franchises to someone that he didn't even know 5.2 miles away, and the corporate never even mentioned it to him. Now, this is a guy with #1 in Texas, where I'm located, the #1 of this franchise in Texas, and they allowed someone to come in 5.2 miles away. So it's not a guarantee. And I know I financed a number of people in the Subway business. Subway operators do not make a lot of money. It's a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year take home to the Subway operator. So you need multiple units to make any real money. So my biggest challenge with Subway, or not, let me not use Subway particularly, but the challenge with franchising is you don't necessarily control your own destiny like you do as an independent. But most business owners must have the structure that comes with a franchise. So it's a mixed bag. But if I had to pick, I would take the independent road like I have for the last 20 years. But that's not always the road that most entrepreneurs can take.
The franchise also has some other opportunities. For example, Haagen-Dazs came out with the first popsicle that you can dip in chocolate, and you can choose the type of chocolate that goes on the popsicle. I was the first person, by the way, at a corporate meeting to be asked to try the first popsicle. A bit of trivia. So I had fun with that. But we did sell a lot of that. So there's a new product that comes out that's part of the corporation, and then you become part of that, and therefore that helps you expand your business.
Exactly, but if I'm running a mom and pop ice cream shop and I see what Haagen-Dazs is doing without the $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 investment, I can start hand dipping ice cream into chocolate myself and sell them down the block and say, guess what? These were made here. You can pitch that whole mom and pop approach.
Well, it's a marketing issue. I mean, a lot of people want the predictability of the franchise. They know what they're going to get, and a lot of people are attuned to habit. So if you want to be competitive with that, you have to figure out how to do it differently, but most importantly, you have to figure out how to market it and how to make it interesting and enticing to get people off the main highway, so to speak. So I think there's room, but it's all a matter of entrepreneurship. I think franchises are wonderful for all the reasons that we've discussed, but that doesn't mean that the world is going to be franchised up and down. You can use your creativity. Our America is filled with creative people.
And some towns actually actively
And,
keep them out. I
right.
go up to Bar Harbor, Maine a lot. You're not allowed to have a chain
And I
restaurant
think,
or a store.
I mean, aside from perhaps some First Amendment issues that might be involved here, I think that's wonderful. Variety is what
Absolutely.
has made America great.
I'm going to get your final thoughts. Put on your thinking caps. If you were to recommend a franchise for somebody to buy right now, what do you think it would be, Jim? I'm putting you on the spot, I know.
I honestly couldn't pick one out. There's a lot.
Is Chipotle a franchise?
It is.
It seems like that's red hot right now.
It is. I think a lot of it, what's more important for me as a financial planner when I work with my clients is for the client to really understand why they want to be in a business. Right. And if they have a special product or service, then they probably want to do it on their own. They don't necessarily want to get into a structured environment. Even if they don't have the systems in place, they can be built. On the other hand, if they happen to want that structure and that formation and the branding and everything else, then franchisees are great. But then you got to decide where you want to be. Franchises aren't all operated the same. Ice cream's different than sandwiches, different than hamburgers, different than a client of mine has a couple of Amco dealerships, transmissions. So they're all a little bit different. I think it's more important to understand why you're going into business before you choose the type of business, whether it's independent or franchise.
All right, thanks very much. Matt Manero joining us here today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bart Rossi will be back. Alain Sanders, Jim McCarthy, thanks so much for your time and your thoughts as well. When we come back, it is time for our lightning round when we take a look at some of the week's stories in lightning fast fashion after this.